Hi, everyone. We have made it to the end. It's been just a totally incredible day. Following all of you on Twitter, stepping into many of the sessions. We just started with such an incredible morning with Dr. Debbie Reese. Thank you again, Dr. Reese, for joining us. You started our day with so much power and focus and force for the good that we can do in the world as literacy educators. So thank you. And a tremendous, huge thank you to everyone who's presented across the day today. Every session has been totally amazing. And the best part is they're all recorded. So if you're someone like me who was like, but I want to see them all, you're able to go back and view the recording. Right now on our website, if you click over to the Invite Your EduFriends link, now it will send out the link to today's recording for all of your EduFriends, so they can find it here as well. Also, just to mention, on the top of the Gathering website, we have a Padlet. If in the next several days you write a post, as we know many of you do, about your experiences today, or you want to shout out some sessions that you particularly learned from, or you want to show ways that you've put the practices you heard into practice, please feel free to share links to your own posts on that Padlet, or anything else that you'd like to share. We will gather those and then share those back out through our blog and through our channels in the coming days. So thank you, thank you. Also, hi, all of you now near 40 countries that are tuning in today. The EdCollab is a global event, and we're so happy to have all of you here. This also, numbers don't matter as much as the impact that it makes on the individual, but it's not too shabby that this looks like it's turning out to be one of the largest gatherings that we've had to date. We have tens of thousands of views already just today, and we know many more of you will continue to rewatch these sessions going forward. So that's pretty awesome. We're so glad that we're together. But even more importantly, thank you for the impact that you make. Up on the screen now is just a reminder that whatever you took from today was a free gift for all of education, for all of you as educators. And so we ask that you pay that gift forward. So please click on our adopted charity link on our webpage, or you can go to this direct link and it'll take you to that page. And if we could go to the next slide, Carolyn, a reminder of our adopted charities. We have ATALM, that was selected by Dr. Debbie Reese. That organization helps to support not just the history, but the right now lives of Indigenous people, supporting archives, libraries, and museums in telling the true lives and true experiences of Native people in the US and around the world. So please do send donations their way. Then we also selected, it's so hard to choose, but one thing that we know is that local engagement matters more than anything. So if you're going to donate your dollars to help those in Texas and Florida, in the Bahamas, in Mexico, in Puerto Rico, just anywhere around the world that needs support. Always search for local organizations, because those organizations have been in the community and they will stay in the community well past anything that's going on. So through advice and through asking lots of questions, we just selected a few. It's worthy of note that the Hispanic Federation, when you donate on their page, there's a drop-down list that you can choose where you'd like your funds to go to, or you can choose general. And so there they have specific funds set up for the earthquake in Mexico, for the hurricanes that have devastated Puerto Rico and the rest of the Caribbean, as well as a fund to support the emergency of DACA, the renewal that's happening now, and trying to support DACA recipients. So please know there's many options for giving there too. So what you would have paid for lunch today, or a coffee, or even consider what you would have paid to register for such an incredible gathering of learning, please give there. Then a very special shout out, and we've put all their Twitter handles here on purpose because we hope that you'll thank them. These are all of the people that this go-round have made today possible. If it wasn't for these incredible educators, they are all educators, all doing the same work that all of us are doing. And in addition to that, they also have been giving their time to prep all of our presenters and prepare for today and to run today. The fun thing is, if you're part of the tech team, which any of you can be, just fill out the proposal form and say, I'd like to be a part of the tech team. We all communicate over Voxer all day long, and we send fun gifts to each other, but we also solve tech problems in the background too. So Carolyn, Lauren, Claire, Jessica, Franny, thank you from the bottom of all of our hearts. Today would not be possible without your volunteer support. So please thank these folks. Screenshot this picture if you need to. Make sure that you say thank you to them. A couple of quick announcements. A way that you support the EdCollab and the work that we do on free days like this, and also for our low-cost professional development, is either to, we're just trying this out, but it's kind of fun. I actually bought a few of these for myself already. You can shop at our brand new store where we made logo designs and lots of things. Basically, when you purchase a shirt or a mug or a tote or anything else, it hopefully is something cool and fun that you can wear or use. But it also, proceeds come back to the EdCollab to support days like this. Our day is all volunteer, but it does cost quite a bit to make sure that everything's running the way that it needs to. And so this helps to defer those costs. So thank you. Or even better, you also can join us for some of our online learning across the year. If you missed my pre-recorded session, you can watch it at any time, where I describe in depth what it means to join a virtual think tank cohort, or to purchase a very inexpensive, they start at $29 seat for a study series, and the study series web sessions you can share with everyone at your school all year long. So going through on a few announcements. Drum roll. So we've already announced that our next gathering is April 21st. Now we're happy to announce who our opening keynotes are. So our opening co-keynote is Ellen Keene and Dr. Nell Duke. We are so honored and excited to have them join us on Saturday, April 21st. They will be our morning kickoff to the day. They need no introduction, but you know them from all of their work, I'm sure. We especially have all of us have loved, and I know you have as well, their This Not That series of books through Heinemann that have taken up challenges in education, and through practitioners and researchers in really thin volumes have suggested ways that you can do better. As Dr. Debbie Reese reminded us this morning, many times we aren't aware of what isn't working, or what's hurting people, or what's not helpful to children. Part of our work is just becoming more aware and listening and learning more. And the more we know, the better we do. And that's what their series has helped. So please come back on April 21st. And we also would love for you to join us too. Proposals are open right now. If you go on the top of our page, our gathering page, just click, I think it's Present With Us. There you'll be taken to the proposal system, and we would love to have you join. I just have to say one thing that I love so much about the gathering is how many of you across today were tweeting, I've never heard this person speak before, and now we're best friends. Like, there were several of you that were like, I found my soulmate. The gathering is a great way to share your work with the world. As you saw today, we love when students can join us, colleagues can join us, you can present yourselves. All of the proposals for our, oh, this says fall 2018. I'm sorry, that should say spring 2018. So for our April gathering are open until December 15th. So you have until then, but don't forget. All right, so now I'd like to introduce to you our closing session, which we are so honored to have. So teaching tolerance, the mission of teaching tolerance is to reduce prejudice, improve intergroup relations, and support equitable school experiences for our nation's children. We believe that schools must educate all students for full participation in a diverse democracy. Teaching Tolerance, if you are anywhere on social media, you've likely seen them, you likely follow their work. If not, it's an organization you want to follow. They're a project of the Southern Poverty Law Center. They do incredible work in supporting teachers and advocates in helping all kids have a voice in classrooms and all adults as well too. We're so delighted to be joined from Teaching Tolerance and from their advisory board, 2 members. Lhisa Almashy is a 25-year veteran teacher and trainer in Palm Beach County. She's currently the Cultural Competency Program Planner for the School District of Palm Beach, and we're so happy to have Lhisa here. And Dr. Ambastrong Makayo is an associate specialist at the University of Hawaii College of Education, and we are so lucky to have you both here too. So they will present and share resources from Teaching Tolerance, tell you some of their own work, which, by the way, I don't know if we posted it, we're going to find some of their videos that are produced by Teaching Tolerance of their work that are just absolutely gorgeous, and their work with students. I'm gushing a little bit, and I'll stop gushing so you can start. But it's really beautiful to watch them work in their classrooms. So we'll find links and make sure we pass those out. Also, at the end of their session, we will take some questions. So if there's any questions that you have about the work that you do, about the work of Teaching Tolerance, at any point during the session, please use hashtag TheEdCollabGathering. I'll keep track of those, and then if there are some at the end, I'll post those. So without further ado, welcome Amber and Lhisa.
Aloha, thanks for having us. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of what our presentation is going to be about today. We are here from the Teaching Tolerance Advisory Board to do the best we can to share the good work of Teaching Tolerance with all of you. And we're going to start with some introductions about myself and Lhisa. And then we'll give you a brief overview of the history of Teaching Tolerance and the current projects that they have. And after that brief overview, I'm going to actually walk you through their brand new website that got released this fall and show you some of the amazing resources that they have that you can access for free online. And then at the end of the session, we're going to have time for your questions. So I'm going to pass it over to Lhisa and let her get us started by telling us a little bit about herself.
Thank you, Amber. Aloha, everybody. Amber's teaching me too. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for this invitation. It is an honor to represent Teaching Tolerance and in the work that they do, and also the School District of Palm Beach County. I first got involved with Teaching Tolerance probably about 5 or 6 years ago, actually. I was honored and humbled to win an award for culturally responsive teaching, excellence in culturally responsive teaching, and there were 5 of us. And after we were honored with that, I was invited to be on the advisory board, and thus started my journey into understanding that there is one exception to nothing in life is free, because Teaching Tolerance and the materials and the resources and the knowledge is free and fantastic, and the connections that we can make with each other around the world is exceptional. So I'm delighted to be here to share, a little bit of my journey and offer some suggestions to those of you that are listening now and in the future.
So I'm just going to queue up so you can see Lhisa in her classroom. This is the work that she does and the work that she was recognized for.
My name is Lhisa Almashy, and I was born in Michigan. My mom's from Venezuela, and my dad was from Hungary. I am the varsity diving coach here at Park Vista, and I am one of the boys' varsity soccer coaches here. We are one of the largest high schools in the state of Florida. I love coaching. You really get to see a different side to the students. The diving is a team sport, but your individual role is vital in it. And when I talk about differentiating instruction, well, you have to do that with diving. It's always that reminder in my classroom that, yes, I have a class, but I have a class of individual students, and each of those students deserves my attention. My students come from other countries, and they're called ELL, which is English Language Learner. I went to Venezuela when I was in first grade, did not know any Spanish. I was not noticed the entire first day by the teacher. I sat there, the bell rang, and off I went. So that was my first experience as a Spanish language learner. I have these students coming in, and they might not be used to a constitutional democracy. I have Cuban students, and so how can I relate that to begin with? Secondly, the curriculum begins at the Civil War. Well, what I do in my classes, instead of rules, I like doing social contracts. This is where you're going to live. This is the place that I want you to feel comfortable. So with that class, I said, all right, we're going to do a constitution. This is not about, oh, I'm going to vote and that this is a democracy, because it's not yet. Agreed, it can't be lopsided. They got to food in the class. Some were adamant about, you can't eat, this is your education, you'll mess up the classroom. Others were like, we're hungry, we should be able to eat and feel comfortable. So we said, right, we're not going to keep it in here. We'll have to deal with it later. So just like some of the causes of the Civil War, what is our opportunity cost going to be with this? It's more important to create this nation. And that way I could have them relate a little bit to the idea of how the Constitution came to be with the Founding Fathers. I could have them relate it to some of the rules that, you know, they could live by. And then I could also jump to the causes of the Civil War. But more importantly, it established that real world connection. I did a lesson on the Crucible. We started with Puritanism, and I developed this cooperative learning game, which encompasses everybody's individual learning styles, where they're at with their literacy and their oral proficiency. And why? So each person in the group has to have a role. It really fosters teamwork, and then you can get into the questions of why. You get into the inference, you can synthesize, and everybody feels comfortable, and it's okay to make a mistake in this kind of an atmosphere. I went through high school thinking, I don't like school. I started failing all my classes. I had an English teacher 1 year, and one day after class, she said, where are you from? You know, you look a little bit different than the other kids. And I said, well, you know, my family's from Venezuela. She said, tell me a little bit about it. This conversation took about 3 minutes. And she said, I tell you what, let me go ahead and have you look up Simon Bolivar. Just look him up, do a report for me. I started reading about this man who was this phenomenal leader, you know, braved the Andes Mountains. And I was like, this is my ancestry. I mean, I wrote up the paper, and it was my first A. And that was the first moment of my life where I really thought, I can learn, and she changed my life. And I think that's one of the reasons I came full circle, to realize the power that one person has at any given moment in time to change another human being's life.
So that is Lhisa, and I'm going to plug myself back in, and now I'm going to introduce myself. And I've been so fortunate to get to know Lhisa over the years and work with her at Teaching Tolerance. My experience with Teaching Tolerance is I was a social studies teacher in the Hawaii State Department of Education, and at the time, about 10 years ago, I was working on my PhD, and I had a professor that said, hey, Teaching Tolerance is starting this new award for culturally responsive teaching. I really think that you should apply. And I clicked on the application and started reading through all of the questions. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, these questions actually get at the heart of what I'm aiming to do as an educator. And I couldn't believe that there was a national award that recognized teachers who are making these types of commitments. And that's when I applied, and I ended up winning. And what is Teaching Tolerance has meant for me is it's just helped me build relationships with amazing educators from all over the world. And it's really important for me out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and not always feeling like I can be connected to others. And teaching tolerance has helped to connect me with a larger network of people who are like-minded and are all working towards the same goal together. And I think that's what they do with all of their resources and the opportunities that they provide for teachers is they're building this network, and we're working together to say that social justice and multicultural education and culturally responsive teaching shouldn't be just one aspect of education, but it should be a part of mainstream education and everybody's experience. And that's a lot of what teaching tolerance has meant to me and why I'm so excited to be able to share it with you. So before we jump into our presentation, I'm going to share my video as well.
I teach ethnic studies and philosophy at Kailua High School, and one of the approaches that I use to designing curriculum and to teaching this course is to be a culturally responsive teacher. I'm acknowledging that my students come from various different backgrounds, and I'm seeing that as a strength, and I want to craft a pedagogy that capitalizes on that strength in the classroom.
I felt uncomfortable assuming which ethnicity everyone else was, and uncomfortable with people making assumptions about me.
Do you feel uncomfortable when you walk around in the hall every day at school and make assumptions about people, or do you think that this was uncomfortable because maybe you were going to have to share it in this class?
I thought I was going to have to share it, so I was getting kind of nervous.
When you actually become accountable for your assumptions, that's what makes you nervous. And we're using the tools of critical thinking so that they're working on their thinking skills while they're negotiating this academic discourse related to who am I, do I belong, how do I relate to other people. There's different levels of being local. And so I have a question then. If there's different levels of being local, do you think there's different levels of respect that local people give to other people? It gets them to look at assumptions and to start breaking down their prejudices. And these critical thinking tools can transfer across any discipline and any content area. And one of the critical parts of our discussions is that they have to be done in an intellectually safe environment so that students feel comfortable sharing what they really think about things and using specific examples from their life.
Second grade, I remember like we were living on the streets. It's something very personal, something very deep that I always had to hide from everybody because I didn't feel like I would be accepted. Like I can share it now because I feel like we came together as a family.
The teaching strategies I don't think are unique to me as a person. I think that these are things that teachers across the globe can be using in their classrooms. And I'm seeing that there's a direct relationship between the social emotional aspects of who we are and the cognitive development that we experience.
You can use what you learn about other people's opinions and what you learn about yourself from those people's opinions, and you can apply that in the future.
And I've learned that the only way that I'm going to get my students to be able to develop their critical thinking is that they need to be emotionally connected to the content that we're studying. And they need to do it in this community of inquiry where they're really interested in hearing what other people have to say about things.
I need to know, like, well, how does everyone feel about being local? People who are not local, how does that make them feel like to be left out?
Hawaii has all these students from diverse backgrounds. And I think that this is what brings joy and interest to my teaching and keeps it new and different. Okay, awesome job, you guys.
Okay. So that's an introduction to Lhisa and I, and now I'm going to pass it over to Lhisa to give you an overview of teaching tolerance.
All right, thanks, Amber. Boy, we haven't seen those videos in a long time. We have a lot less gray hair in about 5 years. So,
Exactly.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take you through a quick slide presentation just to get an overview of teaching tolerance, and also to remind you of the hashtag if you have any questions for later on. And that's the hashtag TheEdCollabGathering. We've been using it all day, been amazing sessions. And then under that, I did put my Twitter handle, not creative. It is my first and last name. okay? Lhisa with an H. So on the next slide, and I know Chris talked about the mission and that to be a little bit more specific, besides just helping us educate, schools and teachers educate, to be active participants in a diverse democracy. Teaching Tolerance started in 1991 as a result of 20 years after the Southern Poverty Law Center was founded, which was 1971, realizing that combating hate and trying to react to it is still necessary, but the founders realized that at the other end, let's try to prevent it. And how do we prevent it? That's through education. So 1991, Teaching Tolerance was founded, and it is teaching facing classrooms, professional development resources, and at the heart of it, it is supporting anti-bias, multicultural, and social justice education. The vision is the basic premise and belief that a diverse democracy requires key competencies and that can and must be taught in our schools, and they have to be nurtured in our schools. And the value of so many of the presentations today reiterated that fact, and that our schools, if in fact that happens, create and educate generations of young people who actually thrive in a diverse society without marginalizing. The key objectives are really, and again, presentations have echoed this, but this is really essential. We have to have our students and people and adults, quite frankly, having a positive sense of their own social identity. Even one of the presentations talked about how do we form that identity, and Amber will get into that a little bit later. Another objective and premise is that we have to respect each other and have a sense of empathy and the ability to recognize other points of view. Now, nobody really argues the fact that respect is necessary, and we all understand respect. The key is, what does our understanding translate? So what respect means to me might be vastly different than what respect means to somebody else. And so the resources in Teaching Tolerance help us make that more tangible so that we can create social constructs around it and recognize and think critically about the injustices. And then, of course, having skills and dispositions. Now, some of you may be thinking, teaching tolerance. Well, wait a minute, tolerance, I don't like that word. And there's kind of a go back and forth all the time. But this next slide that Amber has up is really the definition of what tolerance is. And it goes back from UNESCO in 1995. Now, remember, Teaching Tolerance was founded in 91. And at that time, tolerance was all about respect and acceptance, harmony in difference. Right? It's not just a moral duty, but it's political and it's a legal requirement. It is something that we all have to try to attain. And so because of that, Teaching Tolerance has maintained, you know, that definition of tolerance so we don't have to go into huge debates over that. In the next slide, we look at the Southern Poverty Law Center, which I talked about, founded in 1971, and how they're really dedicated to fighting hate and bigotry, and fighting for the most vulnerable members of our societies. And we can fill in the blank, right? It's it changes, it alters, but nonetheless, how they do it is through litigation, and then of course education and advocacy, but in particular with the Teaching Tolerance arm of the Southern Poverty Law Center, always working toward true social and equal justice and opportunity. And that's really the difference between equity and equality. All right, on the next slide, you will see some of the publications that they have created over the last 25 years. They are probably the most known for their self-titled magazine. It's published 3 times a year. They are the leading provider of all the anti-bias educational materials with research, and they deliver over under 2,000 words because we understand that teachers are busy. And not all of us can just sit down and read books. So they are tangible, sometimes bite-sized, very real information for all of us. And all of these are also online now and archived. So you don't have to worry about having missed any of the publications. Now on the next slide, again, accentuating that yes, there are some things that are free in the world. These are films. They have actually won Oscars for their films, real Oscars. They're all free, and once you register, you can request them. They'll be sent to you. They're all under an hour. They come with lesson plans. And just want to note that right now the legacy of Rosa Parks is currently out of stock, but if you go online, they're unbelievable. And so this is one of the resources that we'd like to accentuate because, you know, right now we're in Hispanic Heritage Month, but, you know, I'm Hispanic 12 months a year. So these are resources that we can use, you know, outside of these celebratory months to really understand and promote social justice. Next slide shows that we have over 400 free online lesson plans. That's pre-K through 12. Amber's going to take you through it in a little bit, but we can search it by topic, by grade level. I am not the most technological person. That is not a strength that I accentuate, and I can navigate that even at first sight very, very easily. And so you'll be able to as well. And Amber will also show you how now a lot of these lesson plans are public, and if you can create your own learning plan, you can make that public as well. Teaching Tolerance also has special projects. On the next slide, they partner with renowned authors and researchers and experts in their field. This is a slide that shows the new Jim Crow. They have excerpt these texts to show you how the standards can be aligned to these. And on the next slide, there's two main frameworks that we're going to accentuate. And that is the creation of the resources and the PD that is offered. And now, I mean, there are webinars. It's one of the things where it's like that bag that just never ends. You can't continue to keep picking out. It's just never empty because the people are working so diligently to just continue to add on to the PD that's offered and the lesson plans. And so those are really the critical practices and the social justice standards. That's really the twofold process that's involved in the website. All right, next slide. We have the publications and certain special issues that come out depending on, I mean, some are proactive, some are reactive, some are supporting their legal work, and some are best practices. For example, we recently came out with ELL students and their families and best practices of how to work with that. Our LGBT students or Injustice on Our Plates, supporting legal work that's happening and political work. And we do have one coming, an updated LGBT best practices guide. These are from teachers in the field, experts, researchers, and we also have, you know, blog posts and things where people can also get involved. So it's really a circular website with circular possibilities for people to get involved. All right, next we have our initiative. This is an initiative. I know if you're starting to get overwhelmed though, once we go through the website, it's all right there. You don't have to really learn it all right now. I'm still discovering things myself after so many years. But we have Teaching the Movement initiative. This dates back to 2011 from the first report, where we're looking at the model standards, and it continues to be updated. The second report came out in 2014 with our March Continues with 5 essential practices, and also understanding the civil rights and how it is done, and how that it's not just an appendix within our classes, and how we can embed the civil rights, you know, within what we're already doing. All right, next slide. We also have our Responding to Hate and Bias at School and Speaking Up at School and Let's Talk. And that is really the ideology behind this, or the pedagogy rather, is how do we create and support a positive and inclusive school climate tangibly. You know, a lot of times teachers have problems of practice and they aren't quite sure how to go about it. And these are some effective strategies and ways to do that when things that are happening within your school, and how to respond to hate and bias at school. And so these are mailed to every school in the United States. In January, that's when they get mailed. If they're not and they've gotten lost at your school, you can also request those. But this is all funded. The reason why it's free is because it is funded by the Southern Poverty Law Center. All right, some of you may know the Teaching Tolerance with the next slide, and that is the Mix It Up Day. The Mix It Up Day is at lunch. It started 13 years ago, and now thousands of schools actually participate in the Mix It Up Day. And what that is about is it encourages students to identify, question, and cross social boundaries. You know, we did look at some of the resources that were offered even today of why kids, you know, sit together, why they might be afraid to share who they are with others. And so these implications can be, you know, all the way from superficial to very profound. But studies have shown that interactions across group lines can help reduce prejudice. And so this is one way, tangibly, that, that shows that when students can interact with some new biases, that misperceptions can fall away. You know, it's the whole idea of a little time, comfort, and trust that can promote more cultural competence within our schools and among our students. All right, now the next slide is we're getting into the heart of our website, Educating for a Diverse Democracy, right? We do have daily blogs, we have education, educators, experts, staff. If something happens at your school you feel very passionate about, you can write a blog and submit it. People they have their Twitter, they're on Twitter and social media also. And so you can participate in that. And we're going to go ahead and show the next slide that shows, you know, we have Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, our social media. We're also going to highlight again our hashtag for today, the TheEdCollabGathering, and you'll also see my personal Twitter handle, so that you can, you know, contact me with any questions that you may have or ideas. And, you know, again, time, comfort, and trust. We'll make some more connections. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Amber, who's going to really get into the actual website.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, that was really great, Lisa, and it gave you an overview of all of Teaching Tolerance. Well, they probably have more than that, many of Teaching Tolerance's resources, but I'm going to show you how you can access all of these on the website. So if you're at home, you can find the Teaching Tolerance website at www.tolerance.org. And when you land on this first page here, you're going to find all of the tabs. Well, first you're going to find their Educating for a Diverse Democracy, and you're going to find all of their tabs up here on the top: classroom resources, their professional development opportunities, the magazine publications. And then at the top, it tells a little bit about Teaching Tolerance. There's a brand new tab. If you click on here, it shows all of the grant opportunities that are now available to teachers and school districts, and I highly encourage all of you to apply. At the top, you'll also find the tab here for Mix It Up at Lunch Day. For people that are interested in hosting this at your school, the Mix It Up date this year is October 31st, so it's quickly approaching. And I really encourage you to see some of the model schools that have been doing this for years in a startup kit for a way for you to get this started at your school. And then there's a place for the frameworks, which I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into later. But first, I just want to show you, if you scroll down the page here, one of the new features of the website is it always has something called The Moment. And what this focuses on is a current event or something that's critical that's happening in the world right now. And The Moment right now on Teaching Tolerance is featuring their magazine that just came out, the brand new magazine. And this is the fall issue of Teaching Tolerance's magazine. And the cover feature is about recognizing and combating the alt-right in school. And it has guidance on protecting your school from harassment. And then it has practical resources for teachers, like lesson plans. And then you can see on the right-hand side all of the other articles that are being featured from this version, or this latest edition of the magazine. And then if you scroll down to the very bottom of the page here, this website is a great curriculum resource because you can now search by topic: ability, bullying and bias, class, gender and sexual identity, immigration, race and ethnicity, religion, rights and activism, and you can find all of their resources that are grouped by these particular areas if these are things that you're thinking about featuring through the curriculum in your particular classroom, or maybe it's an area that your school wants to work on. So what I wanted to do is to kind of focus on some of these curricular resources, and I wanted to start by taking you to the frameworks. Lhisa showed you that major frameworks that Teaching Tolerance that has developed that help teachers have a starting point for the curriculum that they want to develop related to social justice, multiculturalism, and culturally responsive teaching. And they are the social justice standards and critical practices for anti-bias education. And I just wanted to take you to the social justice standards because these are really unique. They're the first of their kind. We have standards for science, for English language arts, social studies. We had standards for social justice. In addition to them, just being teaching standards, I think one of the really cool things they do is they help to educators define what do we mean by social justice. This is one of those words that's thrown around a lot, and people have different perceptions of what this means. And I think what this framework does is it gives schools and educators a starting point so they can have a common language of what they mean by social justice in their school. And I just want to highlight that it's organized around 4 anchors. Then beneath all of these are a set of indicators. And these 4 anchors are based off of Louise Derman-Sparks' ideas about anti-bias education. And the idea is that when we're working on anti-bias education, students and teachers travel through these 4 domains. And it starts with identity, getting to know who we are, and the multiple facets that make us up as individuals. And then we move into diversity. And this is after we have this strong sense of who we are, that we're able to connect and express comfort with people that are similar and different from ourselves and build empathy and respect and examine the social and cultural and historical places that all of these identities have been built around. And then next we move into this idea of justice. So in addition to knowing who we are and knowing other people, students also then now start to look at stereotypes. They start to look at this idea of unfairness on the individual level versus the institutional or systemic level, ways to identify power and privilege. And then they look at histories of when social justice has been fought for around the world. And the final phase then is going into action. And it starts with empathy. And then it moves into working on your own and working with groups to actually stand up and carry out collective action against bias and injustice. And so I wanted to start with this because I really think it's a foundation for so much of the work that is done on this website. And it really gives teachers and schools a foundation for creating a type of curriculum that they want to do in the area of social justice. So now what I want to do is I want to feature the Classroom Resources tab. And this was something that Lhisa highlighted in her presentation. And the first thing are the lesson plans. So Teaching Tolerance has hundreds and hundreds of lesson plans that are aiming to do all this work that they do. And you can search for them by, you can see over here, by grade level, by topics. You can look at the different domains from the social justice standards, and you can even look now by content areas that we're all responsible for teaching. And they will have lesson plans that they feature on their site, and then the ones that you can search. And you can also see that there's an area right over here where you can bookmark, and that's what I'm going to come to in a little bit, is that you can actually create your own locker here on this website where you can store your own lesson plans, and you can create and bookmark all of the things that you are interested in designing. So this is where some of those lesson plans are. And then in addition to lesson plans, there are learning plans. And these are larger unit plans that have been designed with Teaching Tolerance materials. And again, you can search by grade level, topic, social justice standards, and by subject. And in these learning plans, they're fantastic because they're designed around large questions. And then what they do is they take students through a really pedagogically sound practice of working on word work, vocabulary, and for analyzing texts, community of inquiry strategies, strategies for students to write, and then again, all of these unit plans in with students taking informed action. The perspective texts is another incredible feature of the Teaching Tolerance website. These are a curated set of texts. I think it's reaching somewhere around 4,000 texts right now. I'm not quite sure, but for me as a social studies teacher, I was constantly, I'd get an idea based on the standards and who my students were of something I want to teach, and then I'd have to go find resources, and it was really challenging to often find curated primary sources for my students, and that's what we've got here on this portion of the website. So again, you can search by grade level, by topic, by text type. There are informational texts, literature, multimedia, and visual texts. And again, you can search by the social justice domains and then by subject area. For each text here, let's see if I can get down here. Why am I having a hard time? Here's an example of one. This is a multimedia text. They'll have the video, and then they'll actually have a transcription. And then you can see on the left here, they'll tell you the type it could be taught with. They'll align it to the social justice standards. They'll break down the text complexity of Tier 1 and Tier 2, Tier 3 terminology. And it's just fantastic. So I really encourage everybody to look at this excellent text bank. Then within this, there are ideas for teachers of, well, how do you then teach these texts? And this is broken up into two areas. The first are student tasks. So these would be the culminating activities at the end of units. So they have examples of strategies that students can use, and then do something strategies, which are that informed action. So these are those culminating activities at the end of a unit plan. And then they also have teaching strategies, which are all of the strategies that we use to scaffold and get students prepared to engage in those culminating activities. So those are based around, for the younger grades, exploring text through read-alouds and responding to read-aloud text. So this is K through 2. And then grades 3 through 12, there's word work, which are vocabulary strategies. Reading, these are strategies for how to have students analyze text, and community of inquiry strategies for how do you engage classrooms in meaningful dialogue and discussion around the text that they read. Also in this classroom resources are all of the film kits that Lhisa talked about. On the website here, because I see that we're nearing the end of our session, is I want to just feature this last part, which is called Build a Learning Plan. So you can not only just download these texts individually or these teaching strategies individually, but you can actually build a learning plan on the website. This is called the Learning Plan Builder. Again, it's grounded in those social justice standards. There is a short video as a tutorial, but it looks like, and you will have to create a login and a passcode. We're in here on my password here. Again, everything is free. They're not trying to sell you anything, so you won't get any crazy emails or anything like that. But you create your locker, and then here you can work on your learning plan. And again, you start with your grade level. You pick your social justice domain. You can either write in your essential question, or they have actual essential questions that you can select from. Then you can go on the site and pick the sources that you want to use for your learning plan. And then you can start to build this unit plan where you'll pick your writing activity, your do something activity, and then go in backwards plan and pick what's going to be the vocabulary word work, what's going to be the close and critical reading of the text, and what's going to be the community inquiry strategy. And it's really cool if you look down here at the bottom, it's a backwards planning map where they show you everything that you've been working on. And at the very end, you can save your learning plan, and you can either choose to just keep it in your own locker, or you can share it publicly on the site. And I just want to re-emphasize just what a fantastic resource this is. So this was a really quick overview of the Teaching Tolerance website. It just begins to scratch beneath the surface of all the things that are available here. What you want to do now, I think, is at the very end of this presentation is just open it up for a couple of questions.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share too that Thank you, Amber, because that is, I still learn, and there's so much. And the one thing I wanted to say is, having used this, not to the extent or to its potential, that I have yet to find a situation or a student's very unique, I don't know, concern, question, or anything I wanted to do in class that I cannot find something on this website to help me with. And I think that for so many years, every time I speak, not just for teaching tolerance, but just in any PD I've ever done, I ask people a lot of times, who is your favorite teacher? You know, I think anyone, no matter where you are, they all have that favorite teacher that they've come into contact with. By and large, a lot of people don't remember the content that favorite teacher, you know, actually taught them. Some do, I'm not discounting that, but what they did was they inspired them and they motivated them, or they made them visible. They validated their humanity. It's that social emotional learning. And that is absolutely powerful. It can't be overstated, the importance of that. However, on a large scale, I think that it's time that we have to do more, and we have to help academically, and we have to go beyond just finding a great activity that we think is creative and share it. And that is, to me, the very the inherent value within the Teaching Tolerance website, because it already has the work already done for us. Amber shared, you know, it is aligned. The texts are there, the variety is there, the choice is there, and you can make it uniquely your own. And so we have to take that social emotional learning and then add to that, you know, the academics, the content, so that we can be well-rounded teachers. And that's the difference between, you know, getting motivated and sustaining that motivation, because that's what's critical. And that is where we need to go, you know, as an educating community, if you will, at large.
So we were talking in the chat, so you all know. I want to just pose at the end here one question to both of you, but first I just want to respond that Lhisa, earlier you had said, you know, we're in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month, but I'm Hispanic 12 months out of the year. And I mean, I was tweeting that, writing it down, because exactly what you're saying, that it can't be an activity we do once, or a social justice, something or other unit we do one time. All of our children are children from all diverse backgrounds, and our white majority children all need to continue to dig into this work if we're going to make any meaningful change. So I wanted to pose a question to both of you, and you both could answer, or one of you could answer. So much of us love the work of Teaching Tolerance. There's some in our community that are newer to it, and thank you for all that you're sharing. I'm curious for your own really powerful work, and thank you for sharing those videos. I didn't know you were going to do that, but we'll share the links again to them too. If you had to pick one action or one practice or one behavior or one mindset that's been really meaningful to your work, either at the start or to your work now, if you could just share, what is that? Maybe it's a classroom structure, maybe it's a method that you use, maybe it's just a mindset. I'd love to hear one that has been particularly meaningful to you at some point in the work that you do.
Do you want me to go, Lhisa?
Yeah.
I just want to share that I think one of the strengths of Teaching Tolerance is that it gives us structures. And what I'm really interested in now is, especially here in Hawaii, I think we've overcome many of the challenges of learning about identity and diversity just by the very nature of our population. And what we're really grappling with is how do we systemically change a lot of institutionalized racism that exists, and the things that are harder to see. And what I think Teaching Tolerance, one thing I want to feature right now is those social justice standards. And what we're actually doing in the College of Education now is we're using those social justice standards to rewrite an entire teacher education program and making them at the heart of the program, so that institutionally we're going to change the very nature of the program, so that the type of teachers that we're working on producing in the College of Ed are making multicultural education, culturally responsive teaching, and social justice at the heart of their curriculum. And I just want to highlight the ways in which Teaching Tolerance gives us materials for making those structural and institutional changes on the larger scale in the communities that we work in. So that's just something that I've been thinking about recently, and I think it's one of the great gifts of Teaching Tolerance.
I think for me also, I could always say what Amber said, but I'll be, I always like to follow her lead. She's amazing. But for me, one of the things that I'm doing with the School District of Palm Beach County, what we're doing is we have an initiative, and it's all about equity and access and what that means. And even in today's session, so much of what we talk about is pedagogical, and it is around mindsets or a growth mindset or finding identity, and those are the standards that Teaching Tolerance has. But what is the actionable result, or what comes next? You know, teachers want to have that one thing that you can take away and do. And I think that leads to your question is, you know, there is more than one thing. And so I can tell you, for me, it was the central texts. Because, and this kind of wraps it up a little bit with what Dr. Reese was saying this morning, one of the things that she said that has resonated with me, because she said it a couple times, was, you don't see things, but we do. And that's okay. It doesn't make us bad people when we don't see something. And at the same time, we don't know what we don't know. And, but it's imperative upon us as educators and humans living as productive, responsible citizens within our community to find the things and start to be aware of what we don't know or what we don't see. Because that's the status quo, and that's not good enough anymore. And so the central text and the central text anthology within this, beyond building the lesson plans and learning plans, if you can just go and look at those, I think that will open a lot of people's eyes to another perspective that people have. And it is so wide that you can sit and read and read and read. And like Amber said, it's multimedia. And so that has been very, very tangible, and it can help, because it really does reflect and help us see things that others, you know, others have always seen.
I love that suggestion of, I mean, it's really about how we listen, how we make sure we seek out perspectives like Dr. Reese this morning. And Amber, just to echo for your point, I'm just thinking of, I mean, we're early in the school year now, but whenever that end of year planning comes around, how entire teams of teachers, we get together and we're planning the curriculum for the next year. And whether it's the end of the year or the start of the year, to get out those anti-bias frameworks, to look at the teaching tolerance standards, to have that next to you as you're working and really say, so here are the standards, here are our units, here's whatever, but let's look at what's ultimately going to change the world for our kids, change our community for our kids. I just think that suggestion is so powerful. And to do it for a teacher training program, I mean, that is amazing. If I can just steal, I know we're at 4, but if I could just steal one more question. Both of you serve Teaching Tolerance, and I know that there are so many in our audience that admire that organization and would love to find ways to be more involved. If you wouldn't just at the end here share, what are some ways that people could be more involved and more in touch with the work of Teaching Tolerance?
The first thing that I'm going to say is go onto their website and sign up to get their newsletter. I mean, it's not really a newsletter, but it's through email. They'll share all the latest things that are going on, and you can also sign up to get notification when they change the moment. So I would highly recommend that to all of the viewers. And then, like Lhisa said, there's a portion of the website that's called Right for Teaching Tolerance. I mean, this is really a teacher-driven organization, and so much of their materials and their curriculum is written by teachers. And so you can write blogs, you can write curriculum. They actually pay you to write to work for them. So I highly encourage people to feel like if there's something that you want to say, Teaching Tolerance helps to give you a voice, and you can go find ways to access that on the website.
Yeah, I want to echo that, because I know that in the past of my career, you know, I've always been doing some sort of work around equity and access. And, you know, there are times, and I think everyone can relate to this, where we're just like, oh, I'm doing this and I'm the only one doing it, and I'm in isolation, and what can I do? And so to get connected with Teaching Tolerance, it's a way to fill our tank. We have no reason to feel like we are doing this work in isolation anymore. And actually, forces that want to be divisive are going to accentuate that and help us, push us toward being marginalized continually or feeling in isolation. And there are places like this day, for example, filled my tank up. But this is a website 24/7. And the people that work there, they're like superhuman because they really will connect with you. They get back with you. They want more involvement. It's not a one-sided thing. And, you know, we don't have to work in isolation at all.
And can I just add one more thing? The only last thing I want to add is that they don't undermine the professionalism of teaching. You still have to be active, engaged thinkers. And I really like your comment about the social justice standards, because on the national level, we're not seeing this type of work done in standards-based movements. And this is going to have to come from the school level. And it's going to have to come from teachers being political agents, being actors, being doers, and making the changes themselves.
Thank you both so incredibly much for sharing your incredible gifts, for sharing the work of teaching tolerance that we admire so much. Truly, thank you. You've helped to really not just end our day, but propel us forward into the work that's next for all of us in literacy. So thank you, Amber. Thank you, Lhisa, so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And also thanks to Carolyn, who's behind the scenes here, who's helped to run our session and help us practice. Thank you, Carolyn. I think she's hiding now. But thanks to all of you. Thank you for, as we started talking about this morning, we're in a state where there's crisis visible around us. And that's nothing abnormal. That's nothing that's not new. There are so many members of our huge educator community that, given the day or the political climate, have continually been living in versions of crisis. But as we see images on the news of hurricanes and earthquakes and wildfires, as we see politically comments that are made by our leaders, there's this felt sense that we all are in this state of panic, of concern. It also is a reminder to us, though, that we have one precious life, that we have this one time that here we are together in this place to decide what we do. And we have to decide to be fearless. Because if we're not, then we're not supporting everyone else who also needs that fearlessness too. So thank you, educator friends, for all you do around the world. Thank you for choosing to make change. Thank you for using literacy to do that beautifully. It's such an honor to learn with you. Just some quick reminders. December 15th is when our proposals for April 21st close. If you have presented with us before and you'd like to do it again, we'd love to see your proposals. If you've never done it before, we'd love to see your proposals. If you have students somewhere, we'd love to see your proposals. And it literally doesn't matter where you are in the world as long as you're awake. We're happy to have you, your colleagues, and your students present with us. So please go on our website. You can find the link there. Also, before you go today or in the next few days, if you'd like to leave a comment on our Padlet, we'll make sure to share those with all of our presenters. You can connect to them as well. Or if you write a blog post, as many of you often do after the gathering, that's a place you could drop a link if you'd like, and we can gather those from there and then share them out through our channels as well too. So thank you all for the work that you do. Thank you for supporting your colleagues, your students, and our great profession. And thanks all, and I will play us out with a song. So thank you all very much. Have a great rest of your day.